Wonder Woman is directed by Patty Jenkins and stars Gal Gadot and Chris Pine, and is the newest entry into the DC Cinematic Universe, or whatever you want to call it. I do actually feel sorry for DC because their recent track record with movies hasn't been the best. Man of Steel, to be honest, I thought was okay, but in the long run, yeah, it is pretty boring. Batman v Superman is just a mess, and so is Suicide Squad to some extent. But to be honest, I do think it is slightly better than Batman v Superman. Not hugely, just slightly. This is why I went into Wonder Woman slightly excited and also slightly hesitant as well. I was hesitant because, like I just said, DC's track record hasn't been the best. But I was excited because I was hearing all these positive reviews and just general good feedback from the movie. So I thought they must have done something right, and luckily that is 100% correct because Wonder Woman is easily the best DC movie I have seen in a long, long time. Now, one thing I will say straight out of the gate is that how this movie decides to play out in terms of it being a superhero movie is nothing new. To be honest, it plays it really safe. And I'm absolutely fine with that, because I've reached the point now where I would rather see a DC movie play it safe and do it well than see a DC movie crumble under its own weight because it's trying to take on so many things at once. Batman v Superman. And that's honestly why I think Wonder Woman works as well as it does. It does its own thing and doesn't stray away from it and doesn't take on a load of things at once. It just does its own thing and carries on that line for the most part of the movie. The acting in this movie is really good. I thought Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman was really, really, really good. I thought she was good in Batman v Superman, but here she makes the role her own, where there are times where she can be an absolute badass, but there are other times where she follows her loyalties way too much, and she also becomes a little bit more vulnerable in the process, which is what makes a really good character. And that is one thing I will say, not just regarding Wonder Woman, but also the other main characters in the movie. They feel like real people. The one thing I like about this movie is that, as well as the really cool action set pieces that you have, they take a lot of time to concentrate on the quieter, more slower moments between characters, which develops them and makes them more relatable, which in the long run works well in this movie because when or if something happens to them, you do feel for them and you do feel emotion, which was obviously lacking in movies like Batman v Superman, because even though seeing Batman and Superman fight is cool, you just didn't have the connection with them that you should have had going into the fight. Chris Pine as Steve Trevor I thought was really good in this movie. I've liked him since the Star Trek movies, to be honest, and here I think he's the best he has been in a long, long time. I think he gives a lot of relatability and emotion to his performance. He's kind of the voice of reason in a way, or he's coming from our perspective at least in this kind of situation, and I thought he did his role really well. And when certain things happen in this movie, it does feel really genuine and really heartfelt, and I thought the chemistry he shared with Wonder Woman was perfect. Now, the way this movie is directed by Patty Jenkins is really well done. Like I said, the smaller, quieter moments are handled well in this movie, but the action scenes are handled equally brilliantly in this film, because there are honestly some moments that are just so epic to look at. For example, there is a scene that I love within like the first half of the movie that takes place on a beach. It's this pretty big action scene, and it's so well filmed, and it's colourful. This movie is actually colourful for once, unlike the previous couple of DC movies which have been really grey and drab to look at. In the action scenes, Patty Jenkins decides to use a lot of slow-mo, which does get a little bit annoying after a while, but here it does have a reason. Unlike Zack Snyder, who just uses it for the sake of being slow-mo, here it works because, for example, an action scene might be happening, and if it happened in real time, it might be going so fast you can't quite tell what's going on. So the slow-mo works to kind of pick out certain points in the fight and kind of emphasize them and actually show you this is what happened, which I think works really well here. Also, I'm really glad that this movie did not go the Ghostbusters route, whereby it decides to make women feel uber powerful and make men feel like shit. Here, it tackles it in a much more mature way than Ghostbusters, and I honestly think it was done the best way they could have done it. Now, unfortunately, Wonder Woman is not perfect, and there is one main flaw that I have with this movie, and it is regarding the final act of the film, which is this huge big fight scene, and it requires a lot of CGI that is not convincing whatsoever. Now, there are many reasons why I really don't like this final act battle thing. One, I think it goes on for a bit too long. Secondly, like I said, the CGI is rather unconvincing. And finally, I think it feels completely separate to the rest of the movie. The first two acts have this very distinct feel to them and style that they're going for. This final act just feels like it's completely separate and doesn't quite work. I mean, there are moments in the final act that do work. For example, some quieter moments that happen that really add to the emotion of the scenario. I thought they were handled well. Just the fight around it, though, really felt detached from the rest of the movie. Also, whilst we're on the topic of the final act, the villain of the movie, unfortunately, has the exact same problem as 90% of Marvel's villains in their movies. He's very forgettable, and it's very lackluster. You don't really remember him. Well, obviously, for the sake of the movie, you do. But in the long run, I don't think he's going to be, as memorable as the Joker, for say. Apart from that, though, I had a blast watching Wonder Woman, and I highly recommend you see it, because I feel that as soon as Justice League comes along, we're not going to get a decent DC movie for a while, so I'd savour this moment. If you're a fan of DC, I would really savour it. But yeah, I'm going to give Wonder Woman an 8 out of 10. It's really well handled in pretty much most of the ways that it could have gone, except that final act, which just felt a bit out of kilter for me. So guys, that was my review of Wonder Woman. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've seen the movie, then let me know what you thought in the comments below. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye!